Next game's Robot Masters to cover is Mega Man 7. Now, Mega Man 7 was the first classic Mega Man game, the Rockman World series notwithstanding, to not be on the NES. As such, they went with bigger, more detailed sprites, and the game suffers kind of a screen crunch as a result. Like, everything does feel very cramped, even though I believe the actual hitboxes of all the characters are actually pretty similar to the NES games. But the problem is, with the sprites being so big and all, they do actually extend past the hitboxes and stuff, which can particularly make it difficult when you're making those pixel perfect ledge jumps. But that's not the issue with Mega Man 7 that is causing me to record two different versions of this game. The issue is that they decided to carry over a trait from the Mega Man X series, which I believe the first two games in that series had come out by the time Mega Man 7 came out. I'm not actually sure if X2 came out before or after. I know it came out very close to the time that Mega Man 7 came out. But in any case, the trait that they carried over from the X series is that when you hit a Robot Master with its weakness, it resets its AI pattern back to the start. So what this means in practice is, when you're fighting them with their weakness, you're basically only going to see one attack because you hit them, and then they start to do that attack again. You're likely going to be able to hit them again before they finish that attack, and they'll start that attack again. For this reason, and Mega Man 8 does this too. There are some exceptions, by the way. Not all of the Robot Masters in 7 and 8 do this. In Mega Man 7, Shade Man is a good example of one that doesn't. But Mega Man 7 and 8 both do this, and because of this, I don't think it's fair to rank these Robot Masters based on the SNES and PS1/Saturn version of Mega Man 7 and 8 respectively versus all the rest of them, because the games that came before and the games that came after 7 and 8 don't do this. Even Mega Man and Bass, which for all intents and purposes looks like Mega Man 8, it's a sequel to Mega Man 8 basically, doesn't do this. So it's weird that they brought this feature in. I don't like it. However, to save the day, some Japanese fans created, I believe, what was probably the first ever fan-made demakes of Mega Man 7 and 8 to style them like NES games. They're pretty faithful, with mostly minor changes to make them fall more in line with the NES games, Mega Man 1 through 6, as well as the NES-styled games 9 and 10, although these games came out before 9 and 10. But regardless, one of these changes is hitting a Robot Master with its weakness no longer causes it to reset its AI. So, for the purpose of this video, I will be showing both the SNES fights and the demake fight, and I will be making my final decision based off of the demake, because if I went by the SNES fight, they'd probably all land in the F tier, just because it's so boring when they reset their AI like that. And that's also probably why you're not going to find me doing a Mega Man X Maverick tier list, because at least not based off of attacking them with their weakness. But anyway, let's get on with it. First up is Burst Man. Now, Burst Man, probably the second least favorite Robot Master of the Mega Man 7 Robot Masters. There is one that's worse. I think they're universally agreed upon to be the worst. Probably the worst in the series, if you ask me. But Burstman's gimmick is he's got bubbles along the walls and the floor that are bouncy. The floor, not so much. And the ceiling is made of spikes. Now, why is the ceiling made of spikes? This isn't an underwater stage. You can't jump that high. Well, that's because his attack, the Burst Bomb, it has a little bomb in a bubble that slowly floats towards you. He shoots 3 at a time. There is just enough space that you can jump in between each one and safely get past them. But if you touch the bubble, it's not going to damage you. Instead, you're going to be stuck in the bubble and it's going to rapidly rise to the ceiling where only a spiky death awaits you. And a lot of people find this hard to escape from. I assume that's because they think you can only shoot the bubble, which is not true. Every button you press on the controller helps you break free from the button. I mean, every direction on the D-pad, your jump button, your fire button. I don't recommend pressing the fire button, actually, because you're probably going to have his weakness, the freeze cracker, equipped, and you don't want to waste your energy on that, right? I generally find that it's enough to just spin the D-pad to break free of the bubbles. It is a little bit harder on the DMEC version to do this, but it is still possible with just the D-pad. In a worst case scenario, you can always switch to the Mega Buster and spam the fire button as well and make for sure that you get out of it. What makes this doubly tricky is if you get hit by the first or the second one, you're probably going to get hit by the next one as you fall down from the ceiling as well and have to do it all over again. Especially bad if you get hit by the first one, because you're probably going to be doing it 3 times in a row. And then, in addition to that, whether you end up in one of these bubbles or it hits the wall, once the bubble bursts, the bomb that is inside the bubble will fall to the ground, where it's not going to damage you until it actually explodes if you're standing in the explosion radius, which isn't huge. It's pretty easy to not get hit by it, especially if you're jumping a lot. And this is the attack that he will repeat ad nauseum when you hit him with the Freeze Cracker in the SNES version. Now, if you'll see in the DMEC version, he does have a couple other attacks. One of which is to summon a 3 bubble high column of bubbles that bounce you around and push you into the wall. They're not going to push you into the spikes, thankfully. They don't encapsulate you like that, but they will bounce you around. You'll probably take contact damage as you get bounced into Burst Man. You'll probably hit a bomb, if not Burst Man. But it's an easy attack to just jump over, harmlessly. I mean, the ground is probably going to be littered with bombs, so it'll probably be hard to avoid taking any hits. But honestly, the bombs don't do a lot of damage, so they're not the worst thing to get hit by. And his last attack, which he usually does so quickly after shooting the 3 tall bubble column towards you that you could generally see it as being done in tandem with that attack, is he will point his buster towards the ground and bubbles will come up underneath Mega Man wherever he's standing and they'll rise toward the ceiling. It's easy to get out of the way of a spiky death. You just gotta walk left or right off the bubble, but he'll do this like 3 or 4 times before his AI pattern reaches its natural conclusion, and he starts anew with the burst bombs. It's a tricky fight. I do have to dock it points for having instant death attacks, but I can bring that slightly back up from the fact that basically nothing else except for contact damage does any real amount of damage to you. But yeah, we are going to dock him pretty harshly for having instant death. He will be in the C tier because of that. I do think he is a better fight than Crash Man. So we'll stick him between Crash Man and Iceman. Next up, we have Cloud Man. Now, in the SNES version, you're not going to see much in the footage because it's probably the easiest Robot Master to exploit his weakness and reset of his AI with. You hit him with Burst Bomb, which is his weakness. He'll get encapsulated in the bubble. He'll raise to the top of the screen. The bubble will burst. He will fall. And then He'll have iframes as soon as he hits the ground, and he has to raise back up to the top before he can reset his AI, which is to shoot the thunderbolts, which does give you easily enough of a window to hit him with another burst bomb, and you can just trap him in this loop and he'll never get an attack off. Now, if we look at his full AI on the demake version, where they remove that exploit, the first thing he will do is, in the center of the arena at the top of the screen, he will shoot a thunderbolt at your location. It will, when it hits the ground, it will split into 4 sparks of electricity that move across the ground, 2 to the left, 2 to the right, 1 on each side moving fast, 1 on each side moving slow. It's a pretty typical pattern you'll see in Mega Man games with electric attacks for some reason. After that, he will come down to ground level and he will blow wind, which the animation will always blow to the right, which kind of throws me off when it's actually blowing to the left. This does happen in the SNES version as well as the demake. So you can't go by the animation to know which way you gotta slide. You do have to slide to avoid getting pushed off into the pit on either side of the arena. And then after he stops blowing the wind, he will rise up just enough off the ground to where you can slide underneath him, and he will move left, and he will move right, and he'll move back left before he rises up to the center at the top of the screen and begins his AI anew. Like I said, his weakness is the burst bomb, which is a good weakness for him with as much time as he spends in the air, and the fact that it does tend to go up, and it also does explode on contact, which is good too. I do like the fight, except for the fact that it does have instant death mechanics, which is something that I am going to rate harshly for. I will put him just above Hyperstorm H, for the same reason that I had to dock Hyperstorm H. If not for the instant death on the sides, he would probably be in the A tier. But it is what it is. Next up we have Freeze Man, and he's probably my favorite Robot Master in this game. He's the one that I usually start with, so I'm not used to fighting him with his weakness, which is the Junk Shield. The first thing to say is that his AI pattern is not a perfect loop. He has 3 different attacks and he tends to do them sporadically. He'll do them in order, but he'll do them not at set intervals. His first attack is he will jump and he will throw a ball of ice down at the floor, which will spread from that point to the walls along the floor, icing over the floor, making it slippery. If you are standing on the ground when the ice passes over Mega Man's feet, it will freeze you in place until you either wiggle free, similar to the burst bomb bubbles, or you get hit, which is more likely to happen first. His next attack is he summons a ball of ice to create spikes on the ceiling, icicles that will drop down on you. And his third attack is he will charge up a ball of ice in front of him and shoot it at you. This is the freeze cracker. Once it hits the wall, it'll explode into 4 bits and go out almost halfway across the arena. Yeah, I should have mentioned this during the Burst Man segment, but the explodey bits of the freeze cracker do less damage than the big freeze cracker if it hits directly. So the only other thing worth noting is that whenever you fire at Freeze Man, or in the case of the Junk Shield, since summoning it doesn't count as actually firing a weapon when you hit him, he will jump. And that's part of what makes it a really fun fight to Buster for me, but we're not judging it on the Buster. It is kind of dangerous to get close to Freeze Man, so the Junk Shield's not a great weakness for him to have. It really feels like he's intended to be the first Robot Master you fight, so that you only have the Buster. The Junk Shield was just kind of left over, so they gave it to him. But anyway, as a Buster fight, this would definitely be an S. But with the Junk Shield, that will bring it down into the A tier. Probably the top of the A tier, though, because it is a really solid fight. It's really fun to learn this fight and learn how to dodge all of his attacks, because it does look really crazy when it's going on. But whenever I'm in practice, which I wasn't when I recorded the footage here, but whenever I'm in practice, I can dodge all of his attacks. And it looks so impressive, and it's just fun. It's worth mentioning about Freeze Man that he's one of the Robot Masters that getting hit by his weakness doesn't reset his AI pattern. However, I cannot say that for the next Robot Master, Junkman. The last of the initial 4 Robot Masters that you can fight. Junkman, in the SNES version, when you hit him with his weakness, which is the Thunderbolt, he will have an animation where he's getting zapped, and then he will jump all the way across the screen, and as he passes over you, try to throw some junk directly below him to try and hit you. And then he's vulnerable by the time he lands on the other side of the screen. You can just hit him with a Thunderbolt and then repeat this ad nauseum until he dies. Very simple. He does have more tricks up his sleeve than that, though. He will create a big junk block and send it flying across the screen. It's fairly easy to jump over. It can be a little tricky if you're not used to it, because there's a little bit of a delay before he actually launches it at you. It's easy to anticipate it too much. But once you jump over him, he will hop across the screen a couple times before he does summon the Junk Shield around him. And he's invulnerable while he's doing this. He's also invulnerable while he's creating the junk block. Once he summons the Junk Shield around him, he will jump halfway across the screen, stop in the middle, and shoot the Junk Shield at you, which, just like the plant barrier in Mega Man 6, this is not something Mega Man can do with it. So why can the Robot Master? But anyway, I don't think the Junk Shield actually damages you if it touches you, but it does freeze you in place until you wiggle free, or much more likely until Junkman jumps on you. After which he'll do a couple hops across the screen. Once he reaches the other side, he'll do the big hop to the other side, trying to throw a block of junk directly below him to hit you, restarting his pattern. Like I said, his weakness is the Thunderbolt, which is a good weakness. It hits him all the way across the screen. It's a decent fight, but my issue that I take with it is he has too many phases where he's invulnerable and too many points where it looks like he shouldn't be invulnerable. I mean, sure, fair enough, when he's got his Junk Shield up, he's invulnerable. But why is he invulnerable when he's making a junk block? Why is he invulnerable when he's like making the pose to be about to make the Junk Shield appear but hasn't yet made it appear? These are things that are dragging the fight down a little bit for me. I'd probably put him at the bottom of the A tier because of that. Next up is Shade Man, who is kind of an iconic Robot Master, not only for being the first Darkloid you ever see in the Mega Man Battle Network series, and kind of being the face of the Darkloids by association, but also because his stage in Mega Man 7 has an Easter egg, and it's present in all versions of the game. You hold down whichever button it is that makes Mega Man shoot his Mega Buster when selecting the stage, and instead of hearing the normal Mega Man Robot Master Select sound, you'll hear the Ghosts and Goblins fanfare. And then the music for the stage will be the Ghosts and Goblins first level theme. And this trick, I have seen it stated that it only works the first time you enter the level, but apparently that's incorrect. This works as long as you have not defeated Shade Man yet. But that doesn't really matter for this tier list. What does matter, however, is that Shade Man is not... He's not... his AI in the SNES version does not get reset by being hit by his weakness, and I say that with an asterisk. The asterisk being that it doesn't reset it until he's on the final phase of his AI anyway. So, the way his AI works is he will take a bow at the start of the fight, and then he will fly up to the top of the screen, and he will fly to the left and to the right, and he will swoop down at your current location, which, as far as I know, the only way to get away from this is to slide. Because if he touches you, he will grab you with his feet or something, and he will drag you up to the top of the screen where he will suck your energy out because he's a vampire, and then he'll drop you. This does heal him for the amount that it damages you, and I believe it can vary how much it damages you based on how fast you wriggle away from him, similar to the burst bomb, similar to the junk shield, similar to the frost on the feet in Freeze Man's fight. But the really devastating thing about this is that if he does hit you, his AI resets. This happens in both the SNES version and the D-Make. You have to avoid the swoop twice to move on to the next step of the fight, which he will continue to the other side of the screen after his second swoop, and he will slowly descend. And once he reaches the ground, he will shoot 2 white waves that go in a wave pattern towards the side of the screen that you're on. If they touch Mega Man, he'll turn to stone. I don't think it damages him, but it does set him up to get hit by the next attack. I believe you can wriggle free, just like all the other stuff I've already mentioned. Or you get hit by the next attack, which is actually his signature attack, which is the Noise Crush, where he actually displays how it works quite nicely. He will shoot a small beam up, a small beam down, and they will, whether they hit you or not, they'll go through you, bounce off the wall, come back and hit him, which charges him up to shoot a big beam up and a big beam down. You know, for both of these, you'll have to jump over one and slide under the other. And then his AI resets as he'll fly up to the top of the screen. His weakness is the Wild Coil, and the game does a poor job explaining how it works. Dr. Light does mention to charge it up for more damage, and that's true, it does deal more damage. Uncharged, it will deal 3 damage to Shade Man. Charged up, it'll deal 6. So yeah, you should charge it up. What they don't tell you is that you can hold up when you throw it to make it bounce higher, which does make it go high enough to be able to hit him when he is at the top of the screen flying left and right. And a lot of people don't know this because the game does a very poor job showing this off. The D-Make does a little bit better because the weapon get screen is different. It actually shows it in action rather than just having Dr. Light and Mega Man talk about it. But it doesn't actually give you inputs or anything, so you just see that Mega Man can shoot them up high, and it doesn't really tell you how. But yeah, a little bit of trivia about the Wild Coil there. All this said, I think Shade Man's a pretty good fight. Like, even the SNES version is a pretty good fight, because he won't reset his pattern when you hit him with the Wild Coil until he's to the point that he's shooting out the Noise Crush. As such, he definitely goes up in the A tier. Just below Ringman. Next up we have Slash Man. This fight sucks. This Robot Master does not reset its AI. in the SNES version when hit by a weakness. I say that with an asterisk. He does actually have two weaknesses. It's actually the same two weaknesses that Burst Man has, but just like Burst Man, there's one you'll want to use, and the other one you won't use for a different reason. And it's the same two weapons, Freeze Cracker and the Scorch Wheel. You probably won't use the Scorch Wheel because it doesn't do any additional damage. In fact, it actually does less damage than the main Freeze Cracker ball. It does the same amount of damage as the exploded bits of Freeze Cracker. And if you hit him with a Scorch Wheel, he'll be on fire for a few seconds. If you hit him with a Freeze Cracker, he'll turn into a block of ice and slide across the room comically for the same amount of time. And whichever one you hit him with will cause him to jump on the wall and then up into the ceiling where you cannot attack him. And he will drop what looks like tomatoes on the ground, 4 or 5 of them. If they hit the ground, they leave a little tomato smush mark on the ground that if you step in, you're frozen in place, which you can wiggle free of. However, if they hit you on the head, you will turn red, you will have tomato on your face, and you cannot jump, you cannot shoot, and as far as I am aware, the only way to get free of this status ailment is to be hit by Slash Man when he decides to slide down the wall and Neon Tiger dive into you with his claws. Outside of that, his AI pattern, there's just one thing he does, which is he'll take a short hop in front of him, he'll take another short hop in front of him, and then he will do a long hop to right in front of you, and then slash you with his claws. This fight takes so long no matter what you do. It's better to buster him. It's faster to buster him. But it's still an irritating fight. Slash Man is a very, very bad Robot Master fight. And, yeah, sorry, not sorry. Bottom of the F tier. He sucks. Next up is Spring Man. Now, Spring Man will start the fight the same way by first jumping to the middle. On the DMake version, he does this in one hop. I believe it takes him 2 on the SNES version. Once he jumps to the middle, he'll jump up to the top of the screen. He will wind up a punch by spinning around for a split second before throwing the punch to wherever Mega Man is at the end of that wind up, which makes it a little bit tricky to lead the punch to allow you to safely dodge it. And he'll do it with both fists before he drops down. And this is the AI pattern you're going to see in the SNES version, because if you hit him with his weakness, the Slash Claw, it will knock him back, which will cause him to jump to the center, jump up, and repeat. Now, if you don't hit him with his weakness, or you're playing the DMake, after he lands, after doing his 2 punches, he will summon 2 wild coils, one to the left, one to the right. And then he will make 3 hops before hopping back to the center to do his punches. If there are still at least 1 wild coil on the ground when he lands, he will just go straight to the 3 hops. If there are none on the ground, he will respawn the wild coils. And that is the fight. It's simple, it's to the point, it's tricky enough that it's a decent fight. Yeah, I'd probably put it in the A tier. Above Nightman. And lastly, we have Turbo Man. Now this is the rare odd duck of the bunch where I actually think the fight is better in the SNES version than in the D-Make. However, it's still not a great fight because it puts on display, first thing, probably the single biggest issue that Mega Man 7 as a whole has over the entire rest of the series. And that is the status effects. Particularly the burning status effect. Because the first thing he does is he will summon a Scorch Wheel. He will jump up in the air and throw it at wherever you're standing. So you can bait it to land forward, which will give you more time to jump over it. Problem is, it's almost a pixel perfect jump to clear it. And if you touch the Scorch Wheel itself, which once he throws it to the ground, it will just roll along to the edge and then up the wall, where it will explode into flames that land on the ground. The flames that land on the ground, they just damage you, but if you touch the wheel itself, you will have the fire status effect, which sets you on fire. You can't move. Thankfully, you can't actually be damaged by outside factors while you're on fire, but it does do like 6 pips of damage to you slowly over time while you're on fire. And you do get a brief set of vulnerability frames when it ends, but it's super obnoxious. And like I said, the Scorch Wheel is almost impossible to clear. But if you do manage to clear it, the next thing he'll do is land directly below where he shot the Scorch Wheel from. And he'll start trying to suck you in, which will cause contact damage if you don't slide away. And then when he stops trying to suck you in, he will transform into car mode, and he will rev up the engine. Or actually, he'll do a burnout with the wheel, which is the squeal. And then only on the SNES version do you get the burnout. On the D-Make, all you get is the engine revving, which on the SNES version, the engine revving comes after the burnout, and that tells you that he's about to go. Because when he is in the car form, what he does is at very high speed, so you have to anticipate it. He will zoom all the way across the screen. If he hits you, it will knock you back, and he has a very square hitbox, so there's not going to be any last minute jumping over him. You do have to anticipate it. But it'll knock you into the screen, which means very likely you'll be getting hit again before you get out of his hitbox, unless you're on top of it with a slide. But he can do this several times in a row. I think I've only seen him do it 3 times maximum on the SNES version. But on the D-Make, I've seen him do it as many as 4 times. And the problem is, he spends a random amount of time doing the burnout before he revs the engine and hauls across the screen. Not as big an issue on the SNES version, because, you know, when you hear the engine rev, you know exactly how long you have before he's about to dart across the screen. But the D-Make only has the engine rev, and it's very hard to predict. In the SNES version, if you hit him with his weakness, the Noise Crush, he will reset his AI to the transforming into a car state. So you can at least avoid additional Scorch Wheels this way. The Noise Crush will do 3 damage on a normal hit, 6 damage with a charged up hit, and yeah, this fight has issues. This is a D tier for sure. You know, I feel like putting Starman in the D tier was not right. Because I gave other people that were useless, like Gyro Man, a higher rating, so I'm gonna bump him up in front of Gyro Man. Anyway, Turbo Man, bottom of the D tier. He's lucky he's not an F. Not a great fight. Not at all. Do not like it. Hey, that's not bad. We only had 1 in D tier and 1 in F tier.